It's Rose's Patchwork Quilt. It's vintage quilt that's been handed down in my family for a while. This quilt is probably over 120 years old, and I'm going to tell you its story. It was started by a young lady named Rose. She was born in 1874 in Clay County, Tennessee, and she migrated with her family to Johnson County, Arkansas. While in Johnson County, Arkansas, she married a man. She was 15 years old and she married Tom Doe. And between them, they had four little girls. She married in 1888 to Tom. Her first little girl was Martha Annie. She was born in 1890. And Annie kind of had some mental problems, or she wasn't ever right. And then in 1892, she had Hettie. And in 1894, she had my grandmother, Lamari Ellen. And then in December of 1896, she had Ora Ethel. Now, when Ora Ethel was just a tiny baby, Rose was sitting by the fireplace rocking the baby. And fire popped out or something happened and her dress caught on fire. So she jumps up from the chair she's in and sets the baby on the bed and tells Hettie, watch the baby, and runs outside. And while she's outside, Hettie has noticed that even there's little pieces of fire on the baby swaddling. So Hettie will wet her finger and put it on those spots so the baby didn't catch on fire from her mother's dress being on. But while Rose was outside, the fire must have been terrible because it burned her bad enough that Rose died from the fires. She was 23 years old and she left those four little girls. But that quilt that she had started, well, now Hettie, you'd have to know my great aunt Hettie. She was kind of corker. She might be no bigger or nothing, but she was pretty much said and did what Hettie wanted. But at 6 years old, Hettie gathered up them pieces of her mama's quilt and she hung on to them for a long time. Now the little tiny baby, Aura, went to live with its grandmother, Tom's mother, Tommy Ann. Tommy Ann lived not too far away, so she went to live with Tommy Ann. And now, just a couple years later, Tom had remarried and had a new wife, and they were having more kids. And poor little Annie, somehow poor little Annie died. At 10 years old, she died. And here we go, Hettie again. She's a little headstrong gal. She saves that dress that little Annie died in. And pieces of that little dress are in this quilt of roses. That's just the story that's been handed down through my family. It's not. This is not. I'm not going to unfold it, but it's not a huge quilt, and I think the pattern might be some kind of rolling star because here you got a star here, and these are all little tiny squares around it. The pieces are not big. Some of those are just maybe an inch and a half, 2 inches. And it was hand pieced and hand quilted, and it's old and it's tattered because I'm sure they needed it and used it because my family was always kind of poor, and if they had a quilt, I'm sure they needed it to keep them warm. But here's the quilt that Rose started in 1897, and here's me, her great granddaughter, showing y'all in 2022. But it was a sad story behind it. Because Rose didn't, there's no pictures of Rose. There's nothing she left behind. Just the memories that the little girls had. Because my grandma was 4 when her mama died, and Aunt Hettie was 6. So they were just teeny tiny. And of course, Aunt Ori, the baby, was only 6 weeks old. So they have no memories of their mother at all. But we have Rose's patchwork quilt and her story.